Hello everyone, I'm Taro Yamauchi. My story goes back from the present to a long time ago. No, I'm talking about the present day, but about the hunter-gatherer society in distant Africa. This session is very diverse. Okay, I have been doing fieldwork in hunter-gatherer societies in Congo Basin, Cameroon, with my graduate students. Today, I'd like to report on how hunter-gatherer children become adults, focusing on food acquisition activities by children in the forest. Okay. Before I start talking, let me introduce myself briefly. I have been conducting fieldwork in small communities in South Pacific, Sub-Saharan Africa, East and Southeast Asia. I'm interested in health and nutrition of local populations, including traditional societies. Currently, I focus on mostly sub-Saharan countries, Africa, the yellow color highlighted countries. Okay, as a side note, I recently led a global sanitation project. We are doing participatory action research, PAR, on water, sanitation, and hygiene wash with community-based organizations. For example, we developed children's clubs in urban slums and collaborate with local NGOs. Recently, we published a book. May I announce my book that introduces our sanitation triangle model and the case studies. This is open access, so if you have interest, please check the website. Well, now let's back to my talk today. My talk consists of 3 parts. First, I explain the Baka hunter-gatherers living in tropical rainforest, Cameroon, Africa. Then I will talk field research on behavioral changes of children, and finally, their food acquiring activities in the forest. The so-called pygmy hunter-gatherers inhabit the tropical forests of Central Africa. They are one of the smallest populations in the world. They still engage in hunting and gathering activities. As you can see, the smallest is Efe, and largest one is Tua. And today's my participants, Baka, is in the middle between Efe and Tua. The Baka is one of the pygmy hunter-gatherer groups. They live in southeastern Cameroon and a part of Republic of Congo and Central African Republic. They have small body size, which falls in the middle of the pygmies, between the smallest Efe and the largest Tua, as I mentioned. The Cameroon government began a policy of settlement in the 1950s about the pygmies. So they usually live in village camps, but go into the forest for short periods of time, 1 day or a few days, and longer periods of time, months. So they are doing a dual lifestyle, nomadic in the forest and semi-settled in the village. This is a scene of a typical village camp. The houses are very similar with neighboring agricultural population style. In the forest, they made traditional dome-shaped house called mongul and slept in. Okay, now let's move on to my second topic, changes of daily behavior with increasing age. Okay, as children grow, their body size and physical fitness improve, of course, and their physical range of activities expands. Behavioral patterns, for example, places visited, time spent, may also change with the development of social skills. There may be differences in behavioral patterns between boys and girls. So the purpose of this study is to compare behavioral changes in hunter-gatherer children living in a sedentary community before and after the onset of adolescence. We conducted acceleration monitoring and GPS tracking to determine their daily time-space use and estimate physical activities. We also measured daily step counts by a pedometer built in the accelerometers. It's very, very complicated, but GPS positioning data, we can detect the location and duration of visit. And by accelerometers, built-in pedometers, we have the data 2 minutes intervals. Actually, there's a 4 seconds, and the machine provide 2 minutes average, not average. 最頻値 I forgot in English. Yes, most mode. Yes, thank you very much. The mode between 2 minutes, the 4-second intervals. Then we can convert into METs. Then I accumulate the total daily energy expenditure. Okay, and the daily step counts, as I mentioned, are built in pedometers. Okay. Okay, I'll show you some examples of daily GPS tracking on children. Day 1, 3 consecutive days. The blue is day 1, green, day 2, red, day 3. Okay, this is 14 years girls. Day 1 is blue, yes, and day 2 is green. So she went to other villages. And day 3 is in the forest. It's red one. And do some activities, gathering activity or fishing. Okay, this is 12 years boys. That's more expands. Day 1, they go and back and go there again and go to bush, then back. Okay, this is 7 years girls. And the 3 years boys, almost in the settlement, around 50-meter circle. So, but actually 101 meter, 120. And day 3 is almost in the village camp. I estimate 52 meters. Okay. Okay, in both boys and girls, daily travel distance increased with age. Yes. Interestingly, points dispersed in older boys after onset of adolescence, but not clear in girls. There's a significant correlation between age and travel distance. Correlation R equal 0.7 for boys and girls. Girls as 0.8 almost. The results of daily activity radius were similar with that of the travel distance. It significantly increased with age for both boys and girls. Okay, so let's go to the daily step counts. 33 boys and 36 girls wore an accelerometer with built-in pedometers for 3 consecutive days. According to the international recommendation, daily step counts was between 10,000 and 13,000 for boys and girls. It depends on the age and sex. How much do you think hunter-gatherer children walk per day? No idea? 12 to 19? Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay.
20,000 steps by the time the
Surprisingly, the mean daily step exceeds 20,000 counts. And 94% of obtained daily steps were greater than the counts involved developed countries' children and international recommendations. It was almost double. I think it is difficult to have such a large daily steps for children living in modern societies. They have to go to school and sit down for long hours, but walking is a fundamental movement for humans, and I'd like to stress the importance of walking to prevent obesity, improve physical fitness, and promote healthy growth for children. Okay, back to talk. Activity time by location. The average time spent in the 6 categories of locations was categorized by gender and age. Compared to girls, there were significant changes in daily activities with increasing age among boys. The time spent in the forest and other villages increased significantly, accompanied by a decrease in the time spent in their own village, as you can see. Okay, I'd like to summarize here. Activity patterns change with growth as both travel distance and activity radius increased, and adolescent boys' data were scattered. The differences in activity patterns were observed. In boys, activity location changed as they grew up. Specifically, they left the village and went to the forest or visited other villages, agricultural villages. In girls, on the other hand, did not show much change with age. Okay, let's move on to the last part, focusing on food acquisition activities by children in the forest. Studies of hunter-gatherer subsistence have been described with a focus on food acquisition by adults. Hunting and gathering by children was considered just play and was not expected to contribute to food supply. However, it is unlikely that children, who make up about half of the population in hunter-gatherer societies, where food availability is unstable, are entirely dependent on the adult population for food acquisition. So we would like to determine the participation and contribution of Baka hunter-gatherer children in food acquisition in rainforest hunting camps. The objectives were as follows. 1, to identify children's activities in the forest, especially the time allocation of food acquisition activities. 2nd, to estimate the nutritional contribution to the group by weighing the acquired food and calculating energy and protein containment. We conducted field research in the forest camp. Yes, we accompanied the Baka hunter-gatherers for the total of 22 days over a 2-year period. There were a total of 65 participants, which are 47 children and 18 adults. That is a total of 410 person days for children and 156 person days for adults. Among them, we included 16 children, ages 5 to 18, in our study. We observed the behavior of the 16 children during daytime from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 1 day for each child, and recorded their behavior minute by minute. All wild food brought back to the hunting camp by children were identified and weighed, and their energy and protein content were estimated using the African food composition table. Let's move on to the results and discussions. First is the result of children's daily time allocation from 6 to 6 daytime. Their activities were classified into 11 categories, as shown in this table. As age increased, the duration of traveling forest became significantly longer. And playing and strolling significantly decreased with increasing age. Girls also spend significantly more time on traveling rivers than boys, so they are doing fishing, bail fishing. I'll talk about it later. Next, I'd like to focus the time on hunting, gathering, and fishing activities spent by children. On average, please see the bottom, children spend about 2 to 3 hours a day on hunting and gathering activities. Older boys and girls generally spend 40 to 50 minutes longer than younger boys and girls. In fishing, boys and girls preferred line fishing and bail fishing respectively. Boys prefer line fishing and girls prefer bail fishing. And the bail fishing played a central role in girls' food acquisition behavior, regardless of age. Children of both gender and age groups actively participated in small animal hunting, particularly African giant rat, as I'll show you the picture later, with older boys spending particularly long periods of time. While the breakdown of food acquisition behavior didn't change significantly with age for girls, there was a marked change for boys, with an increase in hunting activity from 32 to 139 minutes. 32 to 139 minutes, and a decrease in fishing activities from 110 to 23 minutes. Offset. Okay, I'll show you the wild food resources acquired by children. As I mentioned, giant poached rat or African giant rat, yeah, and Gabon viper, serpent, tree hyrax. Yes, the boy is very proud of to get it. Yes. Thomas dwarf garago, yes. And tortoise. Aquatic food, including crabs, fish and shrimps, and wild yams, tubers. Okay, energy and protein content from wild food resources. In 16 days, over 45 kilograms of meat and 27.5 kilograms of aquatic resources were brought back to the camp. Estimated amount of energy and protein content are shown in this table. Approximately 30% of both energy and protein were obtained only by the children, 50% by adults, and 20% by joint operation between children and adults. The energy gain per child was calculated to be 91.6 kilocalories per day and 12.9 grams per day of protein, while the energy gain per adult was 256 and 36. This means that the per capita food acquisition capacity of children is about 1/3 that of adults. Therefore, children cannot survive solely on the food they acquire. However, because of their small body size, 80% of their nutrient requirements were met by only children getting food. The remaining 20% was found to be obtained from adults. Okay, I'd like to end my talk with a brief summary. Baka children were active food acquirers in the forest. In particular, they engaged in fishing and hunting of small animals. And in terms of nutrients, they focused on protein acquisition. Children alone acquired wild food for 30% of the total. And when the 20% of wild food acquired by children in collaboration with adults was added, children contributed to 50% of the total. When we think of food acquisition capacity, children had about 1/3 that of adults. However, because of the small body size of children, 80% of their nutrient requirements were met, and the remaining 20% seems to be obtained from adults. Although the children themselves couldn't meet their protein requirements by their own capacity, their nutritional status as a whole group could be well maintained by the high food acquisition capacity of adults and the equitable distribution of food, which is characteristics of hunter-gatherer societies. Okay, thank you for your attention.